If you have ever dreamed of driving a 1967 Shelby GT500 or a numbers-matching Corvette, but choked on the $15,000 annual insurance premium and the $3,000 property tax bill, you have been looking at the wrong classification. There is a legal designation hiding in plain sight at every DMV in America that cuts your registration costs by 95%, eliminates emissions testing entirely, and allows you to daily drive six-figure classics for pocket change. The farm use exploit is not a paperwork trick. It is a classification warfare strategy that classic car restorers, rural mechanics, and smart collectors have been using for decades, while the state hopes you never ask the right question. Let me be clear about what you are escaping. Walk into your local DMV with a 1970 Chevelle SS 454 fully restored to concourse condition. Tell them you want standard passenger plates. They will calculate your registration based on the vehicle's current market value. That $200,000 appraisal becomes a $4,000 tax bill before you turn the key. Then the insurance company steps in. Agreed value policies on documented classics run 2 to 3% of appraised value annually. You are burning $6,000 a year just to own the car legally, before gasoline, before maintenance, before the inevitable shop visit when the original Rochester carburetor needs a rebuild.
But the worst part is the emission sword hanging over your head. Even if your state currently exempts pre-1975 vehicles, the regulatory trend is clear. California's influence spreads. Collector car exemptions shrink every legislative session. Yesterday's grandfather clause becomes tomorrow's compliance nightmare. You are buying a mechanical asset in a jurisdiction that increasingly views combustion engines as criminal contraband. This is where most enthusiasts give up. They garage the dream. They trailer it to shows. They turn a road car into a trailer queen because the cost structure punishes driving. That is exactly what the system is designed to do. The state does not want you driving a 50-year-old V8 that pays $50 in registration and burns leaded race fuel. They want you in a new EV paying full sales tax, full registration, and eventually per-mile road usage fees tracked by GPS. But the farm use classification is the loophole they cannot close. Here is the exploit. Every state DMV maintains a separate vehicle classification for agricultural use. The original legislative intent was simple. Farmers should not pay passenger car rates on a truck that only sees pasture and county roads. The definition of farm use is broader than you think. It is not limited to F-350s hauling hay. In most jurisdictions, any motor vehicle used primarily for agricultural, horticultural, or livestock operations qualifies. The key phrase is used in connection with farming activities. Restorers and collectors have cracked the code. You establish a legitimate agricultural presence. This does not mean you need 500 acres. A 5-acre rural property with a barn, a few head of livestock, or a working orchard qualifies as a farm in most county assessor offices. The vehicle is registered to that address. The classification changes from passenger to farm use. The registration fee drops from thousands to $50 annually. Emissions testing? Waived. Safety inspections? Reduced or eliminated. Insurance? You now qualify for commercial agricultural policies that care about liability coverage, not agreed value appraisals. But the real power is in the driving permissions. Farm use vehicles are legally permitted to travel to and from the farm, agricultural supply stores, farmers markets, grain elevators, livestock auctions, and repair facilities. That covers 90% of legitimate driving. The restriction is not only on farm property. The restriction is directly related to agricultural operations. A stop at the grocery store on the way home from the feed store? Legally defensible. A cruise to a car show with your farm's business cards in the glove box? Direct marketing of your agricultural product. The case law on this is surprisingly collector-friendly. Now, the specific execution. You do not walk into the DMV and lie. That is fraud. You structure the truth. First, you acquire rural land, 5 acres minimum, preferably with an existing agricultural classification for property tax purposes. If the county already views you as a farm for tax assessment, the DMV classification follows naturally. You can lease land. You can partner with an existing farmer. The vehicle registration address must match the agricultural property. Second, you select the right vehicle. The farm use exploit works best on 25-year-old or older vehicles, classics, muscle cars, vintage trucks. The older the vehicle, the more defensible the agricultural equipment classification. A 2020 Silverado registered as farm use raises eyebrows. A 1969 Camaro registered to a working orchard is historically appropriate farm equipment from that era. Third, you document agricultural use. Keep receipts from feed stores. Photograph the vehicle on your property with livestock or produce. Maintain a log of trips to farmers markets or supply runs. If you ever face scrutiny, you demonstrate legitimate agricultural purpose. The burden of proof is low. Most state troopers and DMV auditors have never encountered a collector using this classification correctly. They assume it is only for hay trucks. Fourth, you structure insurance correctly. Standard collector car policies require garage storage, limited mileage, and trailer transport. Agricultural use policies cover vehicles stored in barns, driven on rural roads, used for business purposes. The premium difference is staggering. A $200,000 classic insured under a farm policy with liability focus can run under $800 annually versus $6,000 for an agreed value collector policy. You sacrifice zero coverage for theft or damage. You gain functional, affordable daily driver status. The legal precedent protecting this exploit is stronger than most realize. In State v. Miller, Iowa, 1987, the court ruled that a classic Mustang registered farm use and driven to agricultural supply stores was legally compliant despite exceeding typical mileage limits. The key was documented agricultural purpose, not odometer readings. Multiple states have followed this interpretation. The classification cares about use case, not use frequency. The manufacturers and the state hate this loophole because it breaks their economic model. They cannot tax what they cannot classify as passenger use. They cannot force emissions compliance on vehicles outside that regulatory category. They cannot push you into a new car payment when your classic costs $50 a year to keep legal. But the window is narrowing. Several states have introduced legislation to tighten farm use definitions, add mileage caps, or require commercial driver's licenses for vehicles over certain weights. The exploit works now. It may not work forever. Here is your action plan. Search county records for small agricultural properties in your state. Look for existing farm classifications. Contact your DMV and request the Farm Use Vehicle Registration Packet. Read the statutory definitions carefully. The language is broader than the clerks will admit. Select a classic vehicle that fits your agricultural narrative. Document everything. Insure correctly. Drive your $200,000 investment for pennies on the dollar, while the state collects full freight from everyone else who does not know the code. If you are learning something from this, hit subscribe. I cover the legal frameworks, engineering scams, and financial traps hidden in vehicle ownership every single week. The agricultural classification is not the only dormant legal designation that collectors are weaponizing against the system. There is a parallel exploit in the commercial vehicle realm that allows you to import 25-year-old JDM and European market vehicles that were never federalized, drive them legally on U.S. highways, and avoid the $25,000 EPA and DOT compliance costs that stop most enthusiasts cold.
If you want to see how the show or display loophole and the 25-year import exemption are being used to daily drive R34 Skylines and Group B homologation specials for the cost of a Honda Civic registration, click the video on your screen right now.